Okay, we are live on YouTube. And we are live on Facebook. This is such a big DAF. This is a page of the Talmud that has been one of my beloved pages for a long, long time. It is a spectacular DAF, one that has been dog-eared in my volume. Now I'm using the Koren Talmud for teaching because it includes the halacha whenever there's a question. But it's the Art Scroll Talmud that I read through in my first time reading the entire Talmud in my Daf Yomi journey. And page 55, A and B of the first volume of the Talmud, Berachos. Berachos 55. This is where the sages open their discussion of dreams. It is fascinating, unforgettable. Teachings here that can change a life. Important teachings, vital teachings, crucial teachings. And I'm so excited to share these with you, my holy brothers and sisters. Where are you tuning in from? Who's in the house with us as we enter this big, magnificent DAF? Recall we are in volume 1 of the Talmud, Berachos, blessings. We are in the final chapter of this volume. We've been looking at specific blessings for specific situations, not just where we've eaten something or because we're commanded to perform a mitzvah and we're saying a blessing on that, but rather because we're reminded by some anomaly in the world, some unusual circumstance, and let it serve as a reminder to us that the world was created for a reason, that we were sent into the world for a reason, and that we're grateful. We take this unusual circumstance as a brilliant opportunity to connect with the divine, to thank God for sending us into this world, for trusting God that there's a reason for everything that's going on, no matter how difficult that may be to see when difficult things are happening. AT Daily has a bell officially in the name of the show, right? The name of this show is Bell, the emoji bell, AT Daily, exclamation point. That is the name of this show, AT Daily, because we're jumping into beautiful stuff daily. And today, we have the bell for the first time. It's a wake-up call for spectacular wisdom passed down for thousands of years from our sages. Let's get into it. We don't get into the matter of dreams immediately. We begin with 3 teachings of Rav Yehuda, and in the form of 3 matters, right? There are 3 matters, says Rav Yehuda, which prolong a person's days and years. Important that he says it that way. Prolong somebody's days and years. Number 1, one who prolongs his prayer may prolong his time on earth. Doesn't mean necessarily that he will live, to a very ripe old age, but he will get the most out of his years, and he may even extend his allotted lifetime a little longer. He will get more out of his life. He may even live longer than heaven had originally allotted for him. So one who can prolong his days and years by prolonging prayer, that's number 1. Number 2, by prolonging a person's time at meals, specifically at the table. If we spend more time, if we prolong our time at the meal, when we're sitting at a table with others, we will extend the days and years of our lives. And number 3, surprising, says Rav Yehuda, we can prolong our days and years by prolonging our time in the bathroom. We will come back to that. Prolonging prayer. The sages challenge Rav Yehuda and says, we have heard elsewhere that one who prolongs his prayer in the expectation that his prayer will be granted actually brings down, bad things happen to him, right? One should not expect his prayers to be granted. There's a kind of a smugness to that, an arrogance, right? That God does not like, our sages have said. And so then the Talmud answers, this is not a difficulty. One who prolongs his prayer, not because he expects his prayer to be answered, but because he desires to supplicate more, that he asks more from God, he begs more. He praises God and stands there saying, please God, I need your help. Make me strong, make me overcome my evil inclination, help me to be well, help others to heal. When you spend time in that kind of prayer, not because you expect it to be answered, but because you really want from God and you pray humbly and sincerely, that extends a person's life. Prolonging one's time at the table. Our sages look to a verse from Ezekiel 41:22. Ezekiel begins by describing, Ezekiel has a vision of the third temple. Right? That's where we go to when we think, what will the design of the third temple be? So it's a vision that Ezekiel saw of the heavenly temple, right? The perfect form of the temple. And it's good that we're starting this section of the Talmud with this idea of what Ezekiel saw in a vision, the temple he saw in a vision. And in that vision, he said, this is the altar, or the altar is 3 cubits high. And then he continues with a little more description of the altar, and he completes his description of the altar by saying, this is the table of the Lord. And our sages note, he began by describing the altar in the temple where the sacrifices were brought as an altar, but he completes his statement about the altar by describing it as a table. And from this, our sages learn that while the temple, the physical temple, the ancient temple in Jerusalem stood, the altar atoned for Israel's sins, right? People would bring sacrifices, particularly the sacrifices that were brought on Yom Kippur by the high priest, who would make sacrifices and enter the Holy of Holies and gain atonement for all of Israel. When the temple was destroyed, the altar could no longer atone for Israel. Does that mean that Israel was left without a possibility of atonement? No, our sages teach that when the temple stood, the altar atoned for Israel. When the temple was destroyed, and ever since, one's table atones, right? The dinner table in a home, in a Jewish home, is the center of the home. It's where everything of true importance happens. That is why we must make such an effort to bring sweetness and good conversation and blessing and reciting blessings and sharing and inviting poor people to share our meals with us. There's all manner of good things possible at one's table. And the source for that teaching, we've heard it many times, we brought it down already in this show, that since the temple was destroyed and the altar no longer atones for Israel, now one's table atones. The source for that, according to our sages, is this verse from Ezekiel 41:22. And then we come to the explanation. Rabbi Yehuda says that prolonging one's time in the bathroom actually prolongs one's life. He's challenged by other sages saying we have a teaching actually that prolonging one's time in the bathroom is one of the 10 things which bring hemorrhoids. So here you can see that the sages do in fact go into literally every nook and cranny of human endeavor, of human life. There is nothing that was not created by God in this world and that doesn't have the possibility of being performed according to God's will. And so, they'll give us advice on medical matters, business matters, everything. And here they talk about, okay, it's not a word we often use in polite conversation, but there are 10 things, according to the sages, which cause hemorrhoids. I'm not going to list the 10 things. If you're curious about those 10 things, it's Berachos 55. But one of those things is prolonging one's time in the bathroom. So the sages say, what are you talking about, Rav Yehuda? If prolonging time in the bathroom brings hemorrhoids, that is not something that seems like it will prolong one's life. And then the Gemara answers, the Talmud answers, there is no difficulty. In the old days, you can imagine they didn't have toilets like we have now. Very often, a person would squat over a hole. And in much of the third world, that's still how people go to the bathroom. And prolonging one's time in that position is bad for one and causes physical difficulties. But if one is sitting, so it's not so bad. then that can actually prolong one's life. And that doesn't necessarily mean just sitting in there for a long time. It can also be interpreted to mean that when you need to go, you go. And when you go, you make sure, that you don't rush it, and that it's comfortable, and that you finish, and that you don't rush it. Enough said. Rav Yehuda also says that 3 matters shorten the days and years of one's life. Number 1, if somebody somebody in synagogue who's capable of reading the Torah to the congregation is asked to read the Torah, they actually hand them a Torah scroll and say, please read to the congregation, and he refuses, that can shorten a person's life. We've talked many times now on this show about the cup of blessing, right? After a meal characterized as a meal where we had bread, so it's an actual meal, not a snack. Even though we ate a lot, if we didn't have bread, as we've discussed, it's considered a snack. But if you have a real meal and you blessed it properly before, and there's a group of people gathered here, and we're going to recite not only the grace after the meal, but we're going to do it with the cup of blessing, which for most people, in Ashkenazic Jews at least, is only done when there's 10 men there. They hand you the cup. So if you turn down the cup, right, if you pass on the opportunity to recite this blessing and bless the other people around you, this can actually shorten your life. Why? Because God said, I will bless those who bless you. When you have an opportunity to bless people, you must seize that opportunity. And finally, another matter that says Rabbi Yehuda, the third thing that can shorten a person's days and years, so he will not get the full allotment of life in this world, is one who conducts himself with superiority. In other words, arrogance, right? One who acts arrogantly toward his fellows, toward his companions. Heaven doesn't like that, and it can shorten one's life. And the source for that, the example that's given from the Bible, is Joseph, right? So Joseph, one of the 12 brothers, the one who his brothers sold into slavery in Egypt, ended up saving the whole family and that whole part of the world with his visions, his ability to interpret dreams. And we're about to go into the Talmud's expansive section on interpreting dreams. But Joseph, even when he was young, right, got into trouble with his brothers, earned their enmity, they hated him, because he related his own dreams in which he said that the sun, moon, and the stars the sun, moon, and the 11 stars were bowing to me, by which he meant my mother, my father, and all my brothers were bowing down to me. That's what I dreamed, and he told them all and acted somewhat smugly about it. And in the end, even though he rose to be one of the most powerful men on earth, right, in his age, nevertheless, he died before the rest of his brothers. He died younger. At the end of his life, he died, and then they died. And so our sages learn out from that one must not act with superiority toward others. The exception to that is if a person is appointed by a community to be its leader. It's not that he should then act arrogantly or she should act arrogantly, but rather that one should act with an air of authority that befits the office. So at that point, one should conduct with oneself with authority, with an air of authority. But it is important to note that our sages say one should only lead a community with the consent of the community. And the example for that is when the children of Israel were in the desert and about to build the Mishkan, the tabernacle in the desert, which we are reading about in this week's Torah portion. Of course, there are no accidents, but Torah portion Teruma, we're starting to have the description of the tabernacle. Who will be responsible for building the tabernacle? God says to Moses, I have singled out Betzalel by name. because he is full of wisdom and understanding and craft, and he has 5 qualities that qualify him to be able to be the artisan, the craftsman, who will supervise the building. Moses really supervises, but it's Bezalel who's, let's say the art director, the architect, the one who's going to be in charge of building, designing and building the tabernacle. And he's called out by name, from which our sages say that, there's even a little midrash, like a conversation that went on between God and Moses. And God said to Moses, I'm planning to have Bezalel build the Mishkan, the tabernacle. What do you think, Moses? And Moses says, well, he's appointed by you, God. Good enough for me. And God answers, nevertheless, present him to the people and see what the people say. Moses presents Bezalel to the people, he says, appointed by God to lead us in building the tabernacle. What do you think, people? And the people say, well, he was appointed by God. Good enough for us. Nevertheless, even though it certainly worked out that way, the important thing is that God checked in with Moses and with the people and taught them to check in with the people before appointing a leader over the people. Very important teaching, right? And so a leader should not be leading the people unless the people have consented to be led by this person. And at that point, the leader should adopt an air of authority befitting to the office. Okay. And finally, Rabbi Yehuda says 3 things require a plea for mercy, right? That these things don't normally happen in the world, and when they do happen in the world, it's because God has showered us with mercy, right? When God showers us with mercy is when these things happen. What are they? Number 1, a good king, right? So if we have a good leader over a nation, it's a rare and precious and wonderful thing. And when it's happening, we should be thankful to God because God extended his mercy to us, been sending us a good king. Number 2, a good year, right? Not every year is good. When we have a good year, it means God was specifically merciful to us in that year, and we should be thankful for it. And number 3, a good dream. And this introduces these three sayings of Rabbi Yehuda, 3 things each, now lead us into, here we start on Berachos 55. This is the home address in the Talmud for interpretation and understanding of dreams. And the rabbis will spend, the sages will spend quite a while explaining how dreams function, teachings about dreams, how to understand our dreams, how to hear our dreams, how to help somebody else with their dreams, what dreams mean, which dreams portend that good things will happen to us, which dreams that bad things will happen. An extensive discussion. And as we go through it, we're going to be thinking about why. Why did the sages spend so much time on dream interpretation, which so many of us say, yeah, I had a good dream, I had a bad dream, whatever, you don't want to hear about my dream, it's just a dream, it's a silly thing, it happened, whatever, it doesn't mean anything. We don't take dreams seriously at all, but dreams are meaningful. Dreams are very meaningful. Okay, Rav Chisda says, a dream, this is one of my favorite sayings in the Talmud. Rav Chisda says, a dream not interpreted is like a letter not read. Who sent the letter? Heaven. Hashem. God. God sent the letter. When we have a dream, God sent us a letter, right? A dream is a gift from God specifically designed for you, for me, for whoever is the dreamer. And when we have that dream, if we don't think about what it means, then it's like we received a letter from the Holy One and didn't read it. Just in my notebook here. This is where I take my notes. That is what I am consulting. Okay, what else did I pick up? All right. Rav Chisda also says, no dream is entirely fulfilled, whether for good or for bad. This letter that we've received from God that contains something that we're meant to know and that is going to affect our future. It's a dream. It is not a prophecy. In fact, we will learn in 2 pages that a dream is 1/60th of prophecy. So when a prophet gets a prophecy, there's a much more clear letter from God. A dream is just a hint of what's to come. It's a letter, but in the form of a hint, in the form of a poem, shall we say. It requires interpretation in order to affect our lives. And every dream, as we will hear right now, contains in it lots of stuff which is basically nonsense, right? Many things which will not come true. Many things that feel bad, sound bad, look bad, terrifyingly bad, disgustingly bad, but actually, it doesn't mean that those bad things or these disgusting things are going to happen. It means that there's a meaning wrapped up in all of this seeming nonsense that is important to us and that we have to draw out of the dream. But in terms of most of the events that happen in a dream, no, they're just part of the dream. They're nonsense. And it's because there's so much nonsense that happens in our dreams that many of us, perhaps most of us, are tempted to ignore all dreams as nonsense. But this is a mistake. While there is much nonsense in every dream, there is a kernel of deep and important and directed truth in every dream. Very good. Then the sages argue, what is better for a person? A good dream or a bad dream? A good dream is a very beautiful experience. I used to, when I was younger, often dream that I was flying, and I loved it. And as I got older, I had that dream less and less, and I missed that dream. That's a good dream. But a bad dream, says Rav Chisda, a nightmare, a scary dream, the kind of dream that you're so thankful that you woke up from it, is better for a person. Why? Because it's a wake-up call. A bad dream leads to examining one's deeds and perhaps changing one's behavior, making an atonement, and growth, right? So a bad dream is obviously a much less pleasant experience, but it can be healthier for a person. And that's a teaching that we can extend to our waking lives. Really pleasant, fun experiences are great. We love having them. But it's the tough times, the difficult events in our lives from which we can grow quite a bit more. Rabbi Yochanan said, in the name of Shimon Bar Yochai, what I was saying before, all dreams contain nonsense. Even a prophet. Yosef HaTzadik, Joseph, right? Jacob's son Joseph, known as the Tzaddik, the righteous person, who was a prophet, who saw things, was able to interpret dreams, saved much of the world by being able to interpret Pharaoh's dream about, remember, the 7 fat cows and the 7 lean cows and the 7 fat ears of corn and the 7 lean ones portending what was coming, the famine, etc. Even Joseph, when he had the dream as a child, that the sun, the moon, and the stars would bow to him, and that dream was realized, right? Eventually they would all bow to him because he became the second most powerful man on earth, Pharaoh's right-hand man. But the moon did not bow to him, right? The sun, moon, and the stars represent his father, his mother, and his 11 brothers. But his mother was dead. Even at the time he had the dream, his mother was dead. So there was no aspect of his mother bowing down to him. And that's to show you that even a prophet, even one who has as keen a sense of what's going on in heaven that can be brought down and interpreted by us in this world, even such a man as Joseph, when he had a dream, it included a bunch of untruths and nonsense. How much more when we have dreams? From Joseph, we also learn that one may wait as long as 22 years for a dream to be realized, right? When we get some kind of a message in a dream of something that's going to happen to us, for us, it may well be realized, even though it takes 22 years to materialize. Rav Huna says, good people have bad dreams, and bad people have good dreams. Not everybody agrees with Rabbi Huna. But why does Rabbi Huna say this? He says that good people have bad dreams because they have a great reward coming to them in the next world. But nobody's perfect. And so for the few misdeeds that a really good person has, he gets punished in this world by sweating through really bad dreams. Right? And it's said that King David never had a good dream. And, who was so good and righteous as King David? But of course we know that even King David made some mistakes, right? Was called to account for them by the prophet Nathan. And it wasn't Natan, right? I'm spacing right at this moment. But anyway, the prophet came to David and said, you did wrong. And so the partial punishment for the few misdeeds that he had, or that any really super righteous person has, is to have some bad dreams. On the other hand, a really bad person, a completely wicked person, who has no reward coming to them in the next world, they have good dreams, because even the most wicked person has done a few good things. And so his reward is completed in this world by having good dreams, so that when he gets to the next world, he's got, no merits to count on that have not yet been rewarded. And of course, most of us, this is a teaching from the Alter Rebbe, the founder of Chabad Hasidism, that the vast majority of us, and it's from the Talmud as well, the vast majority of us are not completely righteous or completely wicked. The vast, vast majority of us, the 99.9999%, are middling people in terms of our morality, right? We're all somewhere in the middle. We do our best. We do a lot of good things. We do some bad things. And so, we can have both kinds of dreams. If one has a distressing dream, right? A nightmare. It could be the nightmare where you're running away from a monster, but more like the kind of nightmare where you're really distressed, like, perhaps, God forbid, somebody you really loved was taken from you, or gets very ill, or you get ill, or you lost something that was so important, not only to you, but to your family. I mean, the kind of dreams that you wake up in a cold sweat and you're like, oh my God, it's not real. Thank God, right? But then you're thinking, but wait a minute, is that gonna happen? Did I have that kind of distressing dream because it's something that's gonna happen and you're really worried about that? So if somebody has a dream like that where your soul is really distressed, what should he do? So we have a little incident where three sages, Ameimar, Mar Zutra, and Rav Ashi, were sitting together. And they said, let each and every one of us say something that the other has not heard. One of them, doesn't say which, began and said, one who saw a dream and does not know what he saw should stand before the priest when they lift their hands during the priestly blessing and say the following. And what follows is what's known as the formula, or the, what do we call it? It's in every prayer book. It's the recitation for the amelioration of bad dreams. And this is also in the prayer book, that during holiday benching, meaning when we're let's say in synagogue for Rosh Hashanah, right? And in an Orthodox shul, they're going to have the Kohanim, people who are Cohens, right? Who are descended from the priests. And Cohens know who they are, right? Their father told them they're a Cohen, and so you're a Cohen if your father told you that you were a Cohen, that he was a Cohen and you're a Cohen, right? And so during that service, and it's done, at Passover, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, at all the major holidays. In Israel, it's done every day in some communities, but in terms of like the really impactful, it's called duchening, where the priests, first they get their hands washed outside the room by people like me, the Leviim, the ones who serve the priests. We wash their hands, and they go to the front of the room, they cover themselves, their heads, and we cover our heads. So we don't look into the eyes of the Kohen, and then they bless the congregation, the priestly blessing. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord countenance you and be gracious to you. May the Lord favor you and grant you peace. But when they do it very slowly. And they sing it in a very haunting melody. And in between, and those are three verses, and in between the three verses, sometimes we sing an additional melody. And when I've been to Uman, Ukraine for Rosh Hashanah, I didn't go last year, but I went to 2 previous Rosh Hashanahs. And I was privileged to be with the community called Nekuda Tova. If you ever go to Uman, every Jewish man should try to get to Uman, Ukraine, Rosh Hashanah, right? That's where Rabbi Nachman of Breslov is buried. 80,000 men gather there now every Rosh Hashanah. Some call it the Jewish Burning Man. And Nekuda Tova is a kind of very creative, pretty youthful, very uplifting, kind of spiritual, very musical community. Let me just open my computer here. And when the Cohens in the front of the room are reciting that priestly blessing, and they do their melody, and then there's a pause between each blessing, and then we all sing a nigun, a wordless melody. And it's in Nekuda Tova, different communities use different melodies for this, but in Nekuda Tova, in Uman, Ukraine, by Rosh Hashanah, between the verses of the priestly blessing, we sing the Ribnitzer Nigun. The Ribnitzer Rebbe, he's actually a quite recent Rebbe. He's passed from this world, and he's buried in Monsey, New York. And he wrote this beautiful, haunting melody. I have a recording here that Moshe Storch made for us. And I made a video when I was at the graveside of the Ribnitzer, and people were singing this melody, but I wasn't a good singer and they weren't good singers, so I had Moshe record it. There's a video of this. You can find it on our page. You can Google it. Ribnitzer, R-I-B-N-I-T-Z-E-R, the Ribnitzer Nigun. And I'm going to play it for you while I am reading to you this formula for the amelioration of a bad dream, which we read and we read it and we think about what it means between the verses of blessing from the priests on Rosh Hashanah. We actually do this at all major holidays, right? So on a major holiday, we're praying in temple, the priests are blessing us. It is a very elevated time. We're higher than our normal selves. We're like floating a little bit off the ground. Our souls are reaching up to their source. And it's like portals are opening. And so while you listen to this nigun, I'm going to read to you what we're reading to ourselves about dreams at that event. Here we go. Master of the universe, I am yours, and my dreams are yours. I dreamed a dream, and I do not know what it is. Whether I have dreamed of myself, whether my friends have dreamed of me, or whether I have dreamed of others, if the dreams are good. Hold on. We have a problem. That recording is only 30 seconds long, so I'm going to start it again. Sorry. Whether I have dreamed of myself, whether my dreams have dreamed of me, or whether I have dreamed of others. If the dreams are good, strengthen them and reinforce them like the dreams of Joseph. And if the dreams require healing, heal them like the bitter waters of Marah. By Moses our teacher, and like Miriam from her leprosy, and like Hezekiah from his illness, and like the bitter waters of Jericho by Elisha. And just as you transformed the curse of Bilam the wicked into a blessing, so transform all my dreams for me for the best. And then he should complete his prayer together with the priests so that the congregation responds amen, both to the blessing of the priests and to his individual request. And if he is not able to recite this entire formula, he should say, Majestic One on high, who dwells in power, you are peace, and your name is peace. May it be your will that you bestow upon us peace. But it's better if you have a distressing dream, right? You can get to a temple and ask for this, and say it, when you don't have to wait until a holiday to recite this. When you actually have a dream, you just want to get with 3 people that care about you and say this formula that I just said. Basically, I had a dream, I don't know what it means. If it's for good, may it come true. But if it's for bad, may you transform it into good. Like the bitter waters at Mara were transformed into good. And like the leprosy of Miriam in the desert was transformed into healing. And like Hezekiah's illness was transformed into healing, so may my dream be transformed into a good dream. Ay, 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 ay. Moshe sings it much better than me, but even Moshe singing it doesn't do this justice when there's 300 people. Ay, 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 ay. Ay, 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 ay. And you just feel like this, you're just connecting to a source and a flow, a river of blessing that's always been flowing. And you could tap into it for a moment and be in those waters. It's so special. That is the formula for the amelioration of a dream. Now, you had a dream, you didn't know what it meant. You're afraid it might be for bad, so you go to your friends and recite this formula and ask them to bless you that it should turn to good. And now we get a very, very famous teaching. Very, very famous. Almost as famous as Rav Chisda saying, a dream not interpreted is like a letter not read, if you're tuning in a little late. Now we learn. Rav Bena'a bar Zavda said that Rabbi... What is his name? My pen was running out of ink and I want to get it right. Rav Bena'a bar Zavda said that Rabbi Akiva said, that Rabbi Panda said, that Rabbi Nachum said, that Rabbi Birayim said, in the name of an elder who was Rabbi Bena'a. Rabbi Bena'a had one of these distressing dreams, a powerful dream, and he wanted to know what it meant. And he wanted to be sure that he knew what it meant. And at that time, in Jerusalem, there were 24 professional interpreters of dreams. Right? They took dreams very seriously, not just the sages, but everybody at that time. And there were 24 professional interpreters of dreams. And Rabbi Bena'a went to all 24. And he says he swears that all 24 gave him a completely different interpretation of the dream. Each of the 24 was different than the other 23. And swears, Rabbi Bena'a, all 24 interpretations were realized. All 24 interpretations came true in his life. And from that experience, Rabbi Bena'a concluded and teaches us that all dreams follow the mouth. That is the wording. All dreams follow the mouth. What does that mean? Basically, it means a dream not interpreted is like a letter not read. So you got to have it interpreted. You interpret it yourself or you get help interpreting it. The interpretation of the dream will have an effect on your life. A dream that you don't bother to interpret is a letter not read. A dream that you do interpret or have interpreted will have an effect on a person's life. How are we to understand that the dream is the same, the interpretations vary, and it is the interpretations that then have an effect on a person's life? Didn't the dream come from God? Wasn't it a message from God, right? Sent from heaven for a purpose? And now it's the interpretation that is in some way going to dominate the effect that the dream has on our lives. 4 explanations are given for this. Number 1, whether it's you or a person that you seek out, at that moment, the interpreter is blessed with a power, or some say there are only a few people who have this power, people like Joseph, and if you happen to get one of them, or if the interpreter is granted that power that day, one way or the other, that is a power that when asked to interpret that person now has a power to bestow good or evil into the life of the dreamer. Like it's sort of like a moment has opened up where you can affect someone's fate. This is how important dreams are. That's one interpretation. Another interpretation is that a good interpretation of a dream is sort of like, it's like consulting with a great storyteller, with a great thinker, with a great philosopher, somebody who really understands narrative and intuition and the patterns of people's lives. And so when you consult such a person for your dream, with your dream, that person helps you understand that dream in the context of your life. And now, because you understand your life better, you can, it will have an effect on your life. This is related to the third understanding, which is a person who really cares about you, or at least who cares about good things happening in this world, will hear your dream and interpret it in such a way as to lead to an atonement, right? When we have a powerful dream and we're shaken by it, most likely we're thinking, am I leading my life right? Am I making a mistake? Am I receiving this letter from heaven for a reason, because I need to wake up, make a change, make an adjustment, right? Perhaps that's the best kind of dream interpretation, and that is why all dreams follow the mouth. The fourth interpretation of this saying, all dreams follow the mouth, from Rabbi Bena'a, is that it refers to the mouth of the dreamer. And it could mean the way he communicates the dream, right? Because think about it. When you're sharing a dream that you had, it is very unlikely that you're going to capture everything that happened in that dream. Pretty much impossible. So it's the things that you say about that dream, what you remember from the dream, sort of gets fixed and expressed and manifest in the telling of the dream. So that may be the most dispositive moment in terms of what interpretation and what events will follow the telling of the dream. Or, in a more simplified fashion, it may mean that all dreams follow the mouth, that the dreams that you have at night, you have them because of the things you say or eat during the day before you have the dream. Right? The things we say is the reality that we create. And in creating that reality, we're kind of usually unconsciously aware of how we're influencing ourselves and the people around us. And at night, our words come back to us. And we start to, they come back through this prism, including all the nonsense and the poetry and the fluidity of the dreamscape. But it's somehow, the dream is a comment, perhaps from heaven, on what we've said and maybe even what we've eaten, right? Did we eat mindfully? Did we say a blessing? Does that affect our dream life? Perhaps. And finally, to round out page 55, this was a big page, a little bit longer show than usual, but I mean, is this not an amazing, amazing DAF? Months from now, years from now, we're going to spend, long periods of time reading very technical stuff in the Talmud, rules about particular ways to build structures and conduct, technical stuff. Here we're having such richness, so let us appreciate while we're here. So to round out DAF 55 of Berachos, Rabbi Yochanan said, 3 dreams come true. We should say tend to come true, right? None of these things are absolute. But Rabbi Yochanan said 3 dreams. What's his exact wording? Let me get that. 3 dreams are fulfilled. That's how he put it. 3 dreams are fulfilled. A dream that one has in the morning. Right? It's a little bit different than the nighttime dreams that come one after another and we forget most of them. But that dream that we have in the morning, that we wake up and it's like we're still in it. So it's so clear to us, so much more likely to lead to a memorable and rememberable interpretation is the morning dream. Number 2, a dream that one's friend dreamed about him or her. Right? When somebody has a dream, when we appear in somebody else's dream, and they come back and tell us that we appeared in their dream. Something to listen to very carefully. And finally, if we have a dream, and in the dream, somebody tells us, you're dreaming, and this is what the dream means, or you wake up yourself. It's called a lucid dream, right? If you realize you're dreaming, and not only realize your dream, but while you're dreaming and realizing that you're dreaming, and then you ask yourself, what does this dream mean? And you come up with an interpretation, that is something very likely to be fulfilled in your life. Doesn't mean that exact sequence of stuff is going to happen, but something from that dream is going to be fulfilled in your life. There was a time when I was very interested in lucid dreaming. If anybody else shares this interest, you can actually prompt yourself to have lucid dreams, to be more likely to have a lucid dream by keeping a dream journal. I haven't done this in a long time, years, many years, but I remember it worked, right? So if you just keep a journal by your bed table, by your night table, and every time you wake up, while the dream is still, you can still remember it because you forget it so quickly. But as soon as you wake up, when you know what the dream is, you write it down. You have to have, not somebody nearby who will mind. You need to turn on a light and write it down. Then you're going to start to get very connected to your dreams. And after a while of doing that, if you do it every night, maybe even more than once during the night, for a couple weeks, you may be amazed that you will realize you're dreaming during a dream. You'll have a lucid dream, and then you're in a position. It's an amazing situation because you know you're dreaming, and you know that it's your brain creating the dream, but you're not in control. And you'll be in this like state that's amazing where, well, I'm the dreamer, I should be able to do what I want, but then stuff keeps happening, and like you kind of go in and out of the knowledge that you're dreaming. That lucid dreaming is very much fluid dreaming. But getting that kind of connection to the dream state, as we'll learn in 2 pages, a dream is 1/60th of prophecy. So you're in a semi-prophetic state, and you can learn from it. And you can learn about yourself and your mission and your loved ones and how you can be of greater service to the people around you, and how you can come closer to fulfilling your mission in this world. Highly recommended. That's it for today. Let me pull the cameras here a little closer and see if there are questions or comments that I should address. Ron Belt said, celebrated 13 years clean and sober last Sunday night. I guess you can say I am blessed. You're very blessed. And thank you for sharing, and may you be blessed with many more years in the same condition. Carolyn Chavez brings down Jeremiah 23:32, how to discriminate true versus lying dreams. We're going to talk a lot about, which dreams portend well, what we can take from them. We're going to continue this discussion tomorrow and the day after at least. I'm not sure if the dream discussion goes into page 58. I don't think it does. But for sure, DAF 56 and 57 coming tomorrow and Friday. And with God's help, on Friday, I'll be broadcasting to you early in the day before Shabbos sets in Washington, D.C. I expect to be, with God's help, at AIPAC, the American Israel Public Affairs Committee Policy Conference, with 20,000 other people who love Israel and America and celebrate the beautiful friendship between America and Israel. But at any rate, 56 and 57 continue very much this discussion of dreams. In terms of prophecy, right, the Torah speaks very much about who is a lying prophet, right? And so a real prophet, if he says something is going to happen, it happens. And if a prophet says that something's going to happen and it doesn't happen, so he's a false prophet. But I'm not sure what it says in Jeremiah about dreams. We'll come back to that. Okay, anything else up here? That's it. My pals, sending you all, and there was, can I see that? There was a comment. Oh, there it is. So this is on the YouTube side. My flying dreams are gone now too. Maybe there's a hormonal thing as we age. Have other people experienced that? That you had many dreams of flying when you were young, and they tend to, you lose them largely as you get older? Is that just me? Is that just us? Because we had another comment with the same idea. let us know. My pals, sending you big love from LA. Take care.